I'm going to challenge you just a little bit here, because once again, I want to represent the questions that we get coming at us every week and every day. And we get people saying, you know, now I've listened to what you're saying, I'm even more frightened. Okay? And I know that you don't want to give me a formula, but you've got to give me some direction. You've got to give me some clues. You're telling me I should be aware and flexible. Okay, I'm aware and flexible. Now what do I do? Okay, can you be more specific?
Yes.
Without putting people into a victim mentality?
Yes.
I know there's a fine line to draw here.
Okay, I'm glad at least you see my dilemma here.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Because seriously, I have clients, they ask me, and non-clients who then become clients ask me exactly these questions that they ask you. And it's really hard, you know. Am I going to say to them, oh, leave New York, don't be in California, do this, do that? I mean, certain things are just obvious. You're not going to wait it out in Florida when you know that there's just going to be rising sea water levels. That's simple stuff. But I can be much more specific in the sense of, yes, I can say to people how you should prepare a place, in the sense of the logistics that are involved, what you need to have a new economy going, that you have to have a healer, a teacher, alternative medicine people, scientists, these types of things. I mean, I can go into great lengths of detail of saying...
People who know how to grow things,
Yes.
and people who know how to mend a generator if it's
Yes,
broken, and
yes.
just hands-on
Okay,
skills.
on the hands-on part, I have to admit, I'm like useless. I can barely change a Jeep tire, okay? And it was a joke in the military. They said, don't give him anything, because he'll wreck it. I'm a thinker, I'm a leader of thought, in the sense of, I say to people, think about that, what are you going to do when this happens? And I come up with crazy solution ideas, which then other experts who know about it will then do. So what I do typically with clients, they come to me because they see a situation and say, what do you have to say? So I say, well, try this out, have you thought of that? And that is sort of a way of, I like to say, I turn the ignition key on in the brain, in the mind of my clients or people, and then they run with it and they do something. So the book is a whole collection of inspirations, ideas and stuff that I've researched and had over 20 or 40 years, since I'm a kid really. Stuff that I thought should be changed in the way we live. To put it, you know, blunt, we have to change the way we live. That's what it's about. But so to answer your question now, yes, I can say a lot more in detail about the economy. Like I said, you must not keep your money in the banks, that's clear. The dollar will go down, you need to look for another currency. I still feel that the Swiss franc will be okay for a while. The euro will do a little better for a little while, then it will also get hammered. You have to be in the metals, you have to find your commodities, you need to be in gold and in silver, by which I mean physical possession of gold and silver, and not stocks or shares. So in other words, I can, sorry, to put it clearly to you, I can confirm what John Lear told you. I think his interview was the best. That, I mean, you two, I have to say, without giving you false flattery or stuff, you are the most advanced investigative researchers. And John Lear said many things that I can agree with. So did George Green as to economy, so I can certainly confirm his viewpoints. Also Ralph Ring. I mean, there are quite a few of your interviews that are so advanced that I would think that people need to see them, spend time, invest the time of their own education to look at your work and spend the 50, 60, 70 hours it takes to take it all in. I mean, I did, for preparing this interview, I actually watched all your interviews again. So I can say I've watched them all twice at the very least.
Wow.
And this time is well spent. I think people should really take it in, and then from there, to answer your question, then start their own process of thinking. Okay, so the answer in summary is, there's nothing to be fearful of. You have to be intelligent in the sense of, you need to know certain things are going to happen. And I then always say that seeing this future is its own right action. Seeing is its own action. When you see what's going on, you will be intelligent enough to come up with your own solutions, which are different from one situation to another situation. So one human being will, based on the same knowledge, do one thing, and another will do something else. This is why I can't give blanket advice. It just doesn't work like this. Do you understand? I'm not trying to avoid your question, okay?
Well, but you're saying the most important thing is the people. You're saying that one crazy person, excuse the generality, in a community, it doesn't matter what technology, what preparation, what food stocks you've got, they can wreck everything. This is kind of what you're saying.
Yes, well, if it's just one, then a community of, say, 200 people can isolate that person or put that person to some other use or deal with it in some way. But as soon as you have a few rotten apples who think the wrong way or start dysfunctional behavior, the whole place falls apart. And that has to do with the energetics. I'm not speaking just of psychological level of interaction, but it creates conflict for sure, due to whatever bad emotions that are going on. But it's the energetics. You really want people who are, I don't mean of the same mind and think the same way, that's not what I mean, but who cooperate. You understand the future, the economy, the thinking of the new human, the new mankind, the new human beings is about cooperation, sharing economy, sharing knowledge. Yes, that's right.
It's
that's
actually
what I mean.
A different mode of being.
A different mode to avoid all conflict, yes.
Now, earlier on today, when we were talking over lunch, you mentioned something which I didn't quite understand. You were talking about safe space hunters. What's a safe space? What's a safe space hunter, and what's wrong with a safe space hunter?
Since I put this book out and this notion of, you know, guys think it through, you need to maybe want to find some nicer place to live and get organized, it has created what I call safe space or safe place hunters. It's becoming a trend that people are waking up, so-called, becoming more aware, and they just think, you know, in the logical, usual way of thinking, okay, I need to go find a safe place. Let me go now figure this out, and then they contact me or others, you or other experts, and say, hey, can you tell me where in Canada I should go, or where in wherever? And they expect me then to say, here, use my phone list, you know. It's just not going to work like that. But what's going to happen as people are becoming more and more fearful, and more stuff like China, Burma, and Chile will happen, more people will flip out, basically speaking, and will say, okay, we need to go find a safe place. That's what I mean with safe place hunters. Now you have to be really careful about those people, because they come to the whole issue with a completely inadequate mindset. And it doesn't matter if they come with money. I mean, I can have a guy who comes to me and say, hey, here's €2 million, can I get in on your setup that you're doing? So if it's not the right person, it's not a good thing to do.
Oh yeah, right. So
but of course you need funds first to get it going. Yeah.
So you're kind of saying beware of people who are trying to buy their way into something.
That's what I mean.
They're
also,
not. But they're not sort of how can I say it, spiritually and psychologically equipped to contribute to a community in a way that adds value. Because every person coming in should be adding value to the whole.
That's right. That's the notion. That's exactly it. They come. Everybody should come in. With the contribution idea. There is this old French saying of the Spanish inn, which functions in the way that people bring food and drinks and stuff to the inn and make it an inn with what they bring. Okay, so yes, they have to bring contributions in forms of skills, knowledge, trading, barter, economy, funds. Of course, yes, we need resources.
Yeah, technical skills.
I have investment bankers, and I welcome people who want to come to me with the idea of funding certain projects or places, and I will then sift through it, and I pass them to you and to experts of mine who have actually asked me to say, yes, we are interested in doing this. And so first and foremost, we want to have resources to do it, because we need that. That can be land, that can be technologies, but it has to be certainly also raw funds or gold.
Okay.
And then we also want to have scientists with ideas, patent holders, people who have breakthrough technologies, medical technologies. In other words, brilliant minds. And I know they're coming together through you, through what you're doing, by our effort, by our very effort of doing this, thinking about it, speaking about it, bringing people together. It is happening.
But you need
2
to
years ago, it was kind of nowhere. Today, 2008, we were advanced into this, and in 2 years from now, we'll be really looking good. So I'm very optimistic and confident about what we're doing.
Okay. And in there somewhere, just a little group of people you never mentioned, people who know how to grow things. I don't know how to grow anything.
Sorry, yes, I think I did mention sustainable living.
Did you?
Farming.
I'm sorry.
Farming,
Yes.
Yes.
and,
Yeah.
yeah, and absolutely like organic farming. I mean,
Yes.
you know, you're talking about kind of a movement in a sense to be able to be a sustainable
Yes.
community. In other words, it's not just a community of people that are then waiting for the, you know, for the trucks and the trains to arrive if these things are down. If the grid is down, you know, it's a sustainable community.
That's right.
Right.
That's the most important thing, yes. The new communities will have to be able to grow their own food, essentially. And I spoke to one, I have a friend, him, I cannot disclose who that is and where he lives, but he's an expert, and he showed me in theory what it entails. And it's a big subject, okay? That's just one subject that alone is worth many books.
Yes.
Okay, so it's alternative healing, energy healing, new teaching, new children, the Borises of this world, etc. I mean, it's a huge subject. That's why the fat book.
Right. And
So, okay,
communication
sorry,
was
go ahead.
something we spoke about these backup systems in case, you know, it's like you need to have water on your in this community in case there's no water coming out of the taps. You need to have a generator in case there's no electricity. You need to be able to communicate in case
Yes.
the grid goes down.
So
right?
what were you
Yes.
talking about? What, you've been
Hydro.
talking about wire. What do you call that? Walkie-talkie. Those
Ham radio.
ham radio.
It's
yeah.
talking about ham radio.
I'm talking about
Yeah.
ham radio.
Yes. I was
This
in
is
the military communications
yeah.
officer actually, and that is the most important thing. He's right. I
Really?
mean, without communications, we're toast.
So Henry
Because then we
Deacon
just
has
sitting
been
ducks in the middle of
telling us about this
Sorry,
as
go
well.
Yeah.
Has been encouraging us
Yes.
to do ham radios, to learn it. And you must be, if you're an expert,
Yes.
right? You'd be great. for-
Well, I used to know, but that was 25 years ago, and now the technologies are very different.
Yeah.
But, I
But this is
believe
still-
even ham radio will be going through changes.
It's standard military
Yes.
training on how to use
Yes.
a radio.
Yes.
You know,
No, that every community needs to have that, because should the grid go down, I don't know for sure will it or will it not go down. I don't even want to go there, but just a number of certain things are better dealt with on the checklist to have prepared than not to have prepared, obviously. When you mentioned Deacon, that's something that is really of interest to me. And I wanted to ask you, maybe, I'm sorry if I'm interrupting the whole flow of the
No,
conversation,
absolutely.
but I know he's the one guy who's not on camera for good reason, but I wanted to know if you could explain to me and to the viewers, but I'm interested, in a summary, if that's possible at all, in a few sentences, what he told you. Because I know that what he said is so out there that to me it's interesting. The more out there it is, the more interested I am.
Right. You want to
I'm
start?
sorry if I kind of cut the conversation
well, I
to
mean,
another.
we have to say that he's a government insider who worked for, you know, some very Livermore Labs among other things, and that because of his position, he was in on meetings that were planning things like eliminating large portions of the population through actually viruses that would be planted around the globe. That's one of the things he talks about. And
Yeah, I can probably run through the checklist, actually.
In summary, what I'm
yeah.
trying to say is, can you give sort of
Yes.
the grand scale summary
Okay.
of what he knows?
He knows a lot of stuff. His situation was different from that of most specialists with a basis in science. They're put in one place, they're heavily compartmentalized, and then they become a specialist in one particular area, in one particular location.
Yes.
You know. Now, Henry was different because he had a functioning, he had a function in what in the civilian world would be called project management.
Okay.
So he got to work with teams of people as a function to help them work together, which is quite interesting considering what we're talking about. And because that was so unusual in the so-called black world, he found himself being placed in a number of different locations with a number of different projects, and was unusual, not unique, but unusual, because he got to see a lot of different things in a lot of different places, and was able to connect dots that a lot of people who are in specialized black projects don't get to see what's happening in the room next to them or in the facility down the road or whatever. And Henry knows a lot of stuff. And he told us a whole bunch of stuff, which is so unusual. You're quite right. It's the most remarkable whistleblower I've ever come across, whether we know him or not. So one of the things that's of immediate, imminent importance is that he said that a number of years ago, he was made aware of a plan for a war between China and America in 2008.
That sounds about right, yes.
He told us that in August 2006.
Okay.
So now we're kind of watching, you know. He told us, just as Kerry said, that he'd sat in on meetings where population reduction was planned through the release of stealth viruses, stealth pathogens.
Yes.
He told us about 15 months ago that at the end of 2007, in other words, we passed that line now, he said that from what he knew, which may have been outdated, but from what he knew, the Middle East would no longer be a safe place to be because of the release of viruses. He couldn't swear that that was the truth, but, you know, like now, because he says that things change and things change, but based on what he knew, that's what he was briefed on at the time.
Yes.
He knew about 9/11. He was part of the control team behind 9/11 that were controlling these planes that flew into the World Trade Center, real planes, not holograms.
Okay, so there is that slight little difference between John Lear's viewpoint and
he said,
also mine. And
he said that his best understanding on the basis of the technology which he was working with personally and his briefing was that these were real planes, remotely controlled from thousands of miles away.
Makes sense.
He
I
said
think that rings about the way I would see it.
Yeah,
Yes.
and he said, however, he said that whatever it was that hit the Pentagon was not a passenger plane. He said it was a small Navy jet.
Yes,
what he
or a
said.
missile probably.
Or
So
something.
he was, anyway, so he was, so who, alright, just let me get this clear. So where would the planning module, the brain behind that operation be situated according to him? Would that be
It was in
what
the-
I call like this hidden part of the government that the government itself doesn't even know exists? Because I believe that the government itself has no clue.
Yeah, it was in the location where he was working, and he has asked us not to say where
I
that was.
understand that, that's fair enough.
Yeah, it wasn't New York City. It was distance away.
Yes.
Okay.
That makes, intuitively I think that's right.
I have to say, it's run by various countries. So what you have is a collection of powers that be behind the scenes.
And
that
I think
kind of
that's right,
orchestrating is what he's always stressed.
That's right.
But they also have a plan that rolls out very much like Iron Mountain, the Iron Mountain Report, if you're familiar with that.
Yes, you
Yeah.
must read that report. Very important. Yes.
Henry said
Would
that
fall like dominoes. And,
Yes.
Henry said that many years ago he was in a military briefing where his briefing officer came in, put the Iron Mountain report on the table and said, "We are the wolves, the population, the civilian population are the sheep, read this and then we'll continue to talk in the morning."
Yes.
That's my understanding, you know. And some people out there say that the Iron Mountain report is a hoax and so on. He said he was given that to read by his briefing officer because that was the plan.
Okay.
That's what he said.
But
I
he
think
talks
this is-
about the grid going down, which is something Dan Sherman was trained for.
Yes.
You remember our
Yes,
interview with
absolutely.
Dan Sherman? To be an ET communicator between ETs and the people positioned in power around the globe during
Yes.
this time, which is very interesting. The idea that you needed to communicate with ETs in order to get through that time.
Yeah, that's right. And the first thing that one of the first things that Henry told us back in August 2006, he said, "Get ham radio, you're going to need it."
Yes, okay,
You're
so
going to
that's
need
clear.
it.
Yeah.
You know,
And he also
very
told us to
clear.
get an old car that was not running on like the electronics.
All
the
kinds
new
of stuff.
electronics.
He
That's
said
true.
one of
Yes,
the
that's right.
He said
That's
one of the threats, whether it's from the sun or from some kind of military action or HARP activity or whatever, is electromagnetic pulses.
Yes.
He told us how to shield our electronics. He said the best thing he said, if you've got a choice of a vehicle, get an old diesel truck.
That's
or
right.
an old diesel car with no electronic management system, no spark plugs, it'll just go, just like an old boat or an old,
And he said to bury your computer, like these pulses come like buried in the ground with cotton. I don't know, what is it?
silver foil,
Yes, to fold it in foil. I heard that story.
aluminum foil wrapped up in cloth, in your basement or whatever. Yeah, I mean, all of that kind of
But I
stuff.
take it on your site,
But the
you
thing
have his stuff written,
Yeah.
right?
It's all
in
there,
part,
yes, it's all there.
It's all there.
But the thing is, you see, I mean, there's a whole bunch of detail.
Because I'm
And-
asking you now to go beyond
Yeah.
what you had on the site, if you see what I mean, if you're allowed to, if you can.
Yeah, I can go a little bit beyond what was on the site, which is really quite interesting, because this was about, I can't remember now, it was about 10 days ago or something, just after John Lear's interview came out. And I was in my apartment in Switzerland, and it was
Okay.
3 o'clock in the...
Not too much detail.
No. I was just about to close everything down, and I got an email, and it's an email from Henry. And Henry said, I'm watching John Lear's interview, this is good stuff.
It is
Or
good
words to
stuff.
that effect. Okay. And we, sometimes we get a bunch of emails from Henry, and sometimes we get, we can get a couple of months without hearing from him. So I thought, I better reply straight away, because he's there now in real time. This thing came through. So I replied saying, I'm pleased you're enjoying our interview. And then he got back. Anyway, to cut a long story short, he was watching John Lear's interview in real time
The 4 hours, the whole thing.
for 4 hours from beginning to end.
I did the same.
And
Fascinating.
and as he did so, every time he had a thought or a comment, he'd send me an email, and I got, and I
But
ended
that's
up.
living in the now. That's good. You're
I
doing
ended
the
up
right
with.
thing.
I ended up with 32 emails from the
Yes.
guy, and the bottom line was that he said that 80% of what John Lear said was correct,
Yes.
including some of the wilder things.
Yes, there you go.
He didn't comment on the gravity on the moon and the atmosphere on the moon. He didn't make any comment about that, right or wrong. He said that from his own experience, he could not verify the hologram theory because his own personal experience suggested otherwise, basically.
Yes,
I mean, he was very keen not to trash what John was saying,
Yes.
because he knows that technology exists. But
Yes.
he was saying, as far as I was aware, these were real planes.
But he also
And-
said life on Venus is true.
Oh, I mean, he said
That's
a whole
clear.
bunch of
That is
crazy
clear
stuff
from
that...
Adamski's
Yeah.
1952 record. That is.
He said a whole bunch of crazy... Basically said that everything else that John Lear said was absolutely right on the money.
Yes.
Which is amazing, considering what he did say,
So is he now? I'm sorry to interrupt.
Go on.
Is he now still working there where he's at, or is he out of that?
We
zone?
cannot
Okay, I'm
comment
sorry.
about...
Okay,
I
no,
mean,
that's cool.
this is just not the kind of question. we
No,
can
no.
answer,
I just meant
you know.
to say, is his knowledge
But-
still totally up to date?
Well,
in the sense
okay, I want to say here that this is the issue with Henry and with whistleblowers in general that come from the inside, which is, like Hoagland said in our interview, there are many layers to the onion, and the lie is different at every level.
That's right.
So
yes.
you don't know what level each whistleblower has had exposure to,
Yes.
how high up they were able to get.
Yes.
Now, Henry is not familiar with MJ12. He did not reach
Yes.
that level of being in the know. However, he was in meetings, as we've said.
Yes.
So he had a certain sophisticated level of knowing. However, he didn't go all the way up the
But
chain.
this is what
So-
makes the two of you really the most advanced team, because you've collected it all and brought it together.
Well,
we're trying,
yeah.
we're
Sorry.
trying to centralize this
You see-
knowledge base to get it out there to people so that they will really get the overview of what's going on and not just get
Yes.
these pieces that
Yes.
don't join together.
Because
Yeah.
you have to put the pieces together.
That's important.
One of the pieces that came together at a very early stage, and which really made us sit up and take notice, because we interviewed Dan Burish back in the summer of 2006.
Yes, I remember.
We liked Dan. The story rang true to us. We had we immediately struck up a friendship. We felt he was very credible. We spent a long time with him. And we thought, you know what, this story is crazy, but it just might be true. Next thing we knew, we heard from Henry. He said, yeah, I can confirm all this stuff.
Yes.
Everything about the timelines, time
Yes.
travel, future humans, the whole crazy thing. He said, yeah, I can confirm that. And he'd never heard of Dan Burish. He didn't get this stuff off the internet.
Yes.
We had to say, this is who Dan Burish is, you know. And then the other thing was, just as Kerry said, Henry said, but you know what? I've never heard of Majestic. In all the briefing documents and the briefings, that name was never mentioned. He said, for sure, there are groups behind the scenes who are monitoring this and organizing this and facilitating this and coordinating this. He said, but I never heard that name.
Yes, he may be called a different
called
name.
different
Now, he did
but
talk
also
about
the great.
the second
Go ahead.
son.
Yeah.
Second
Yeah.
son.
That was a given.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
wasn't Planet X per se. It was sort of a different concept.
Vulcan, planet Vulcan, maybe.
No. What he was referring to was a smaller part of the binary star system.
Okay, that makes
yeah.
sense. I agree with that.
And he said that he learnt about that when he was working for a classified project within NOAA, the National Atmospherics
I
and
remember that
Oceanic
story, yes.
Administration. I got the name right. And so he was able to confirm that.
Yes.
And there's this whole other stuff. I mean, he's been to Mars, which is enough to make anyone. I mean, you know.
And our video,
Yeah.
Jump Room to Mars.
Jump Room
we
to Mars.
talk about
Yes.
That's the
that
whole
with David
conversation
Wilcox,
there.
So let's not go too
Yeah.
much more in detail.
Sure.
about this.
No, I know you have that covered. I only asked to be up to date.
But the most important thing, you see, I mean, all of those are details. You can drill
Yes.
down and it's an incredible story. But the overview, which he has said to us many times, he said the problem is that everything is happening in a big kind of convergence.
That's
convergence. Everything's happening at
agree
once.
with
You've
that.
got different factors happening, and the total effect on the human race and the planet is going to be quite traumatic.
Yes.
These are my words, not his.
We get messages saying, in fact, we got like a year ago, we were told about food riots. And at the time, we didn't put it on our website. We, you know,
Yes.
We didn't
because
believe
we thought
it.
it was so outrageous.
We didn't believe it. We thought if we publish all this stuff about food riots, people are going to think that we're crazy.
Yeah, no,
So we
it-
didn't publish
I
it.
know it is happening. It is.
Yeah.
It's the truth. But I think that's only my theory. And I have sources like you. But this one is just my own thinking. I feel that the so-called grey powers behind the actual secret government are sort of testing out certain scenarios now. That's my opinion. I may be wrong, but I think they're testing out what happens, like if you hit China with an earthquake, if you do this to Burma, and do this and this and that, and they're trying to see what does this then add up to. That's
It'll
my opinion for now, at this moment. But in about a year to 2 years' time, we're outside of the test zone in the real thing.
Experiment.
It's interesting. It's an interesting concept,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
So.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I meant to say one thing after all this, because it gets a little dark at times, and I can imagine that viewers will say, oh my god, this is just really crazy dark. You have to know about all of these subjects, that's my opinion again, that you must not turn a blind eye to all of this stuff that we're talking about. So in other words, it is time well spent to learn, to watch all of your videos that you did. That's what I'm saying to the viewers. But on the other hand, you have to also know that you cannot go too much with your energy into these so-called conspiracy subjects. They're not theories, by the way, they're conspiracy truths, they're facts. But because when you give too much energy, too much effort and time into this type of dark stuff, it then starts to pull you down on a vibrational level of fear. This is a balance that you have to find. It's difficult. I think you and we know that this. We live with this. We're expert at this, and so you have to be kind of careful how you give your time and your effort to these subjects. I mean, in essence, what I'm trying to say is you have to know what's going on, and knowing it, you do your own preparations. You
Well,
make your
create a
own
positive
decision.
future out of it.
Yes,
Is
that's
the
it.
idea. And what I would say is this messages for the ground crew is George Green's book, and you can hear more about that on our website if you listen to his interview. But one of the things it talks about is staying in the observer mode, which relates to staying out of fear, being able to follow what's going on, be aware, know if a train is coming down the tracks and you've got to move your car, but at the same time, sort of being able to take it all in, see what resonates with you, and get into almost a meditative state whenever necessary. And I think that's something that we can talk a little bit more about, which is we're talking about the practical, but I do think the spiritual preparation is every bit as important for the coming days.
Yes, it
And
goes
I
hand
think
in
that you
hand.
would agree with me.
Yes, you can't do one without the other. And the observer mode of what you were saying before with the analogy of the boat crew, that's something actually they taught us, the young kids in the military, in the officer school. This guy I worked with, he was a very young general. He said just what you said. He said, look, when the shit hits the fan, in clear English, you have to stay calm because everybody else is going to lose it. So there's only going to be one guy who will be able to say what the next solution is, and that's the guy who can think clearly, and you can only think clearly when you stay calm. I know this sounds a little bit advanced and far-fetched, but that's the way it is, and that's why we need level-headed people in these times that are coming. There is no other way. So
Well,
this is this is Zen at its best, you know.
Absolutely.
Going to back
Yes,
to what we were
sorry.
saying about the boat and the mountain, if I was choosing people to climb with or choosing people to be on a boat with, you don't want people who are going to panic.
Yes,
Really, you don't.
that's exactly right.
And if in the military, you don't want people in your platoon who are going to panic. You want people who are going to stay calm,
Yes.
make the correct judgments, consult other people, not jump to conclusions,
Yes.
assess the situation, and then act.
Yes.
And to do all that in a balanced way.
That's right, and in addition, you want those people also to have developed, highly developed, as much as is possible now, this, what I call psychic, this instinct of being able to deal with what I call the invisible world. You see here around us right now, I can tell you right now, there are at least 5, 6 beings, high beings. Okay, I have 2 who protect me always, one of which is actually a reptilian who is on the news side trying to help out. You have 1 or 2, you have an older, very, very ancient, like a Taoist master being behind you. But you can see stuff in a, and this is going to become more and more the case over the next years, that people will be able, sort of out of the side of their eyes or with the third eye, to actually detect the presence of this other unseen world and go into contact with that and be able somehow, and I have lack of words even in the book for that, via telepathy or somehow establish a consciousness dialogue. So what I'm saying is to do in addition all that you said with the boat crew and the mountain crew, and then do that with the knowing that we're surrounded by beings who can help us.
Right.
And we
that's
have
true.
to advance that gift. Now, a lot of people may think, okay, St. Clair's gone insane, but I want to show you something and you can show it in your thing. This picture is showing a landscape that was photographed 2 years ago in China. I don't know, I forgot where exactly, it's on my website. Anyway, and I haven't taken the initial picture, I should show you the other one. It's a landscape that shows basically a seascape, sea and just a normal edge of coastline with trees and landscape and basically nothing on it, okay? Mm-hmm. This photo is shot by at least hundreds, if not thousands of people. This is known, okay? I'm just saying this as an introduction so it's clear what we're looking at. Mm-hmm. Superimposed, what you see is obviously a city. We're not sure if the city is ancient or if it is future.
Oh, that's great.
Okay, so here comes now the time travel notion. But clearly we see, and then of course the media try to falsify and say, yeah, it's some mirage and just mirage effects due to the weather and stuff. It is not. In my opinion, this shows very clearly the
Overlapping.
overlap reality. In other words, that at the same time, in the same space, exists another reality superimposed on ours. You
Yes.
understand?
Yes.
And this photo is in this sense, oddly enough, by the way, it was
Incredible.
taken and came out in China right about at the same day the first book came out, which was in by itself sort of a sign, a validation type symbol to say, you know, this other world, the unseen world, the other dimensions, all that, it does exist. This is a
and
photo.
this is what they mean when
Yes.
they say esoterically that the veil is thinning
Yes.
between the worlds.
I always try to make things physically clear when I can. So because there's a lot of wordage and verbiage and just jargon of the spiritualists, and I like to show things, just plain.
That's incredible.
But I think people will agree. I
Yes.
mean, people are writing to us every day, telling us
Yes.
of how this is impacting their own lives.
Yes.
How they are having, visitations. They're seeing things before they happen. They're having all kinds of telepathic. I'm clairaudient at times. It's really interesting how this is going on, and there's a speeding up quality about it.
Yes. We could fill a 500-page book just listing people's psychic
Yes.
experiences that
Yes.
they have reported
Yes.
to us.
And it's
Personal
important
experiences.
that they work together as we do, like we obviously work together at another level too, you and I. I mean, you know that sometimes I don't need to say it via email, and and I hear it from you too at times without the word. Say, be careful, don't mess up. And so what I'm trying to say is, so when we have all these skills that we discussed, and add to this whole psychic warrior skill, this Zen master, peaceful warrior type engagement, then we really become effective, and then we become really efficient for the times ahead.
Yeah, I think that we would have to say also, it's like preparing. I call it, preparing your light body. This is every bit as important, and meditation is a really important aspect of this. And through meditation and what happens as you join up the chakras and you do prepare your light body, what you want on your team, what you want in your groups and your tribes are people like this. You want shamans, you want a craftsman, you want a person who can, do these hands-on grow food, but you also want people, all of these people, to have these activated centers so that they can be better able to withstand and change with the coming vibrations that the earth is going through.
But people have then, particularly in these fearful times, the tendency to say, which guy should I follow, what should I think like, and etc. And that's of course the trap not to go into.
Of course, they want somebody to tell you what to do.
Yes.
And for the new times, you're saying, don't let anyone tell you what to do.
No, the new times is exactly
and I
about.
have to say that there's also protection that has to go on, because there are positive ETs and there are negative ETs. There are positive entities and negative entities. So opening up and getting guidance outside yourself can, it's a double-edged sword. And, there's no two ways about it. You do need to be discerning as to what you're listening to. Is it a positive? And that's a road, you have to, that is a spiritual journey. And we can't tell you, what you're communicating with and whether that's a positive entity or not. You're going to have to determine that for yourself. But it's a very important aspect of this, because during these times there are many false prophets.
You bet.
Okay, coming forward. Sovereignty, that means what really seems to be a key word to what this age
Yes,
that
it's
we're
all about
approaching
sovereignty. Yes.
is sovereignty of the earth. In other words, to create its own destiny, regardless of all the ET influences that are impacting it right now, and the negative influences, but to find its own way in a positive growth and evolution. But at the same time, there's personal sovereignty. And this is really an important key thing. In other words, know that every single human has within them this incredible power, this incredible gift, to actually be so much greater than you are now, that your higher self is actually somewhere out there for you to connect with, and God and beyond. So, it's like
That's right. Yes, that's well said, because you have only yourself that you can depend on, to put it bluntly.
What I want to know, and this is a conversation we have not had before this, because I'm really... You've
Yes.
got some maps.
These are
here.
sea level maps showing what happens when so much water
Wow. Okay.
rises and how the maps look like. And I'm not talking now about scallion maps and all these like bizarre maps, because I'm not for or against what these theories are. This is very simply a Google type map situation that says, okay, if you add 20 meters of water, 100 meters of water, etc., then that's the picture you
You
see,
just
imagine.
add... I got it. Yes,
Okay,
yes.
but what I want to say about these sea maps, what's important is that we don't know how water really will react. Because water is magnetic, and we don't know, no one can foretell with absolute certainty how the future Earth's landscape will look like. I have a feeling that there will even be land masses coming out somewhere. There could be lakes disappearing. I'm just saying this to illustrate that we really don't know with absolute certainty where a safe place is. That everything adds up to an enormous crescendo of outside forces that are just simply going to change the landscape of what's given as an
Outside
Earth.
forces, but also
Yes.
maybe pushed along by the powers that be and their games that they're playing, because they do have an agenda.
Certainly.
The Illuminati has an agenda. They're working up to, they are working towards an Armageddon scenario that has to do with eliminating population, following like the Bible as their like, you know, their script, if you will,
Yes.
such that they're actually planning for events that will look a certain way,
Yes.
so that people will buy into them.
Yeah, so that their
And
prophecies
pushing
get
things
fulfilled.
along.
Yes.
Creating wars, creating more chaos in the Middle East. This is part of the plan.
Yes.
So that, you know,
But I would say they will crash and burn themselves because clearly they are on a misguided path. That's the kind way to phrase it. And James Wingmaker says we can actually only give them compassion. I find this a little hard and to think we should give them compassion and love, but it is right, what else can we give them? But they will not get their plans through in that way because the forces of which I'm talking about, which are the higher being forces and nature itself, cosmos itself, will take care of this in its own way.
there's some dark stuff at work there. But what's most important is emphasizing and concentrating on the positive and what you can do to create the future.
Yes, we are co-creators. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
That's the whole reason why we're here. If we were to say to the Chinese who put into Google why we're here, that's it. There's this co-creation experiment, and these years ahead are the most amazing time actually of all of humanity, because as you said in one of your written statements, we're going from the humanity we had to this better version of the new humanity. And that's what's going on. This is fascinating actually.
I think,
This
well,
is
I
positive.
think that's the best explanation for why we're here. I think that needs to be repeated because I think it's really important. This is a co-creativity
Yes.
experiment in which that's why we're here and what we're doing. We're actually here to find out just what incredible creators we are, each and every one of us.
There's a wonderful movie with Jeff Bridges called Starman. And one of the beautiful lines in there that I've never forgotten is, and this is the Starman talking to a human who he teams up with, saying, "The thing I love about you is that when things are at their worst, then you're at your best."
Yes, that's right.
It's a wonderful thought to end up
So
on.
let's hope that's what we are.
But thank you for everything you're doing. This is big what you're doing.
Well, and thank you. And thank you for joining us, Michael St Clair.
It won't be the last time.
We'll see each other soon.